kick things off. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Hunter, and I am the field CTO here at NinjaOne. Today, we're discussing an essential question. Who helps the help desk? Who helps keep the help desk efficient, on task, and maximizes not just their productivity, but their happiness as well. But first, a brief bit of housekeeping before we officially kick things off. This session is being recorded, and you'll receive an email with a link to the recording sometime tomorrow. It'll also be posted to our YouTube channel, so please feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined. I do have some good YouTube videos planned for the next couple months, so you might find that interesting. There is also a giveaway, which we'll announce at the end of the hour, and nothing you need to do. Simply by registering and showing up here today, you have been entered to win your choice of 4 pretty good prizes. And then finally, as we go through everything, I expect you'll certainly have some questions. Please use the Q&A section in Zoom if you'd like to address a question to me. Much easier for me to keep track of the questions in Q&A versus the chat, where everything scrolls by really fast, especially when we have this many attendees. But I certainly would recommend that you keep an eye on the chat. I think that's one of the highlights of these webinars, is to present a scenario and then hear the diversity of experience and opinion in the Ninja community and how they might respond to similar type scenarios, what ideas they have. So definitely keep an eye on the chat. And please feel free to add your own commentary in there, in addition to trolling me. And with that, let's go ahead and finally kick things off. And I will not keep anyone in suspense here. The short answer is that you, the administrator, you help the help desk with plenty of help in turn from NinjaOne. We'll talk about how NinjaOne can address some of the unique challenges faced by the help desk, and how it can be flexible to empower your teams to achieve whatever the goal happens to be. And so there's certainly diversity in your various environments, but there's a lot of core tenets, a lot of commonalities between IT teams. They tend to care about a couple of different things that are common to everything. And of course, you need certain features and functionality to meet your own unique use case, whatever it might be. And you can see here the colored tiles on this slide. I think they give you a good example of some of those core bits of functionality. Would not be a conversation about Ninja without having a conversation about patching both the operating system as well as third-party applications to ensure that you're protected against the latest threats. Seems like there is consistently exploits being announced. I think I saw a stat the other day that said that in 2023, which would be the last full complete year of data, there were 65% more CVEs in 2023 compared to 2022, and I don't think anybody is expecting that to go down. You probably only expect that to go up. I know in June there was a really critical CVE involving a Wi-Fi driver that allowed hostile attackers to potentially execute code remotely without the knowledge of the end user through this wireless driver exploit that's common on Windows devices. So ensuring your operating system and your applications that you're using are being patched is, I think, critical, table stakes functionality when you're managing devices. We also see a lot of interest in the ability to deploy software so that users have their tools that they need to get the job done. And then you need monitoring and alerting and reporting to make sure that you have visibility over your entire IT estate. Without that visibility, you don't have all the information at your fingertips that you need to make decisions. Now, if you're making a decision based off of a partial view, that might not be the decision that you want to make, and you might wish that you had the information to make a better one. And so this also allows you to ensure compliance with security settings. So not just running a script at the initial onboarding or provisioning of a device and making sure that this configuration is deployed, but having an ongoing check over time to ensure that the UAC level is right, the PowerShell version 2 is still disabled, things of that nature. And of course, we also need automation to give us that multiplier effect where one technician can manage hundreds, if not thousands of devices effectively through NinjaOne. And by honing in on these key areas and plus the ones you see below that, like remote access, backup, ticketing, deploying your next-gen AV or EDR tools, we allow the help desk to keep running smoothly and enhance the overall productivity and satisfaction. And so let's break down, how do we begin this process of assisting the help desk? how do we begin this process of improving our automation? And I'll caveat this by saying that adding in automation, we often think of that as being an end-to-end process. We'd like to automate from start to finish. And I would say that that's not always going to be the case. There may be certain processes that have a manual component, and you want to accelerate certain aspects or phases of the process that can be automated while leaving the certain manual elements of that in place simply because there's no other way to accomplish that. And so we'll approach that from two different ways here. And I did want to break down some of the ways we can get inspiration, get ideas, find out what we need to automate and how we can make processes more efficient, especially for the help desk. And so this will be a broad overview. We'll go ahead and break down some of these a little bit more granularly once we actually get into the demonstration portion. So the first one we can talk about is an easy one, which is analyzing your top tickets. What are the most common tickets in your ticketing system? Are they something that can be remediated in an automatic way? And we'll go through an example of how NinjaOne can detect when something is awry, not in compliance, not expected, and then automatically respond. Now, this only really works, this style of automation really only works when you decide to address and remediate a particular issue. So we certainly want to be specific with what we're addressing here. That helps us avoid the unintended consequences of bad automation, where we end up having an automation run when it shouldn't. And so let's consider low disk space. I think it would certainly be beneficial to do something like delete temporary files or empty the recycle bin. You might run Windows cleanup. Now, there is a half-life on how that can be effective. You can only delete temporary files and empty the recycle bin so many times before there's just no point in doing it because that's not where the files that are consuming disk space are located. So if we flip the script a little bit and we put the onus on the end user rather than on the technician, we could do something like run a script to prompt the end user, letting them know that they are low on disk space and therefore they need to delete some files in order to ensure their device remains in good operational status. You need disk space in order to back up your device. You need disk space to patch your device. You need the device to have a certain percentage of free disk space just to maintain normal, good operation. Our next example that we'll talk about is talking about analyzing the root cause of the recurring tickets that come into the help desk. As much as I wish that everybody would simply report the issue that they're experiencing with the root cause, that's not always going to be feasible. An end user is most likely going to report the symptom that they themselves are experiencing, not necessarily whatever the root cause of the issue is that's causing disruption to their day. And we'll talk about an example that actually comes from one of the product managers here at NinjaOne, Stephen Murphy. If you're a member of the NinjaOne community, you probably are familiar with Stephen. He is very active on the NinjaOne Discord. Now, before he worked at NinjaOne, Stephen worked at an MSP, and he was plagued by recurring tickets over not being able to access a file server. And you might think that this was because the server was down, or it could be something that I've encountered in the past, which is that somebody unplugged a cable or cut a cable that they shouldn't have. In this particular case, it was actually that the end user's device had become connected to the wrong network, in this case, the guest Wi-Fi. And so we'll talk about how we can analyze the root cause of this, and how we can directly address the cause of the issue and not just respond to the symptom that is being reported by the end user. Obviously, the end user is not always going to have the knowledge to provide that sort of information up front. In some cases, a ticketing system might not necessarily be utilized, so it might not reflect the accuracy of all the work that's being done. Manual processes that are unrelated to customer interactions, that's a key thing, I think, to look out for because that's where you can streamline and be more efficient and ultimately save time. Now, how do you find this out? Regular meetings with your help desk team are invaluable. For identifying areas where they can be assisted, where processes can be fully automated or simply just accelerated through certain phases. For instance, if a technician is taking multiple steps to resolve a common issue, I might want to give them a series of scripts with a one-click automation where I can run that and it will execute a series of scripts sequentially rather than having perhaps an article that says, well, go ahead and run this script once, then this script, and then this script. I'd rather have that be an all-inclusive one-click automation. That helps, I think, this technician have to click less. It makes them more efficient, but it also standardizes and prevents the possibility of human error, which does happen. And so let's talk about an example of this sort of manual process that might not necessarily show up in your ticketing system that NinjaOne can help automate. In this example, we might have a laptop with Windows installed, but it's otherwise blank. There's nothing on there other than a bare bones version of Windows. Now you can install the NinjaOne agent, and then on its initial check-in, NinjaOne can run scripts, automations on the device, which are going to do things like install the necessary applications for the end user. It's going to patch the device. It's going to deploy security configurations to make sure that the device is protected against potential malicious attackers. And I feel very strongly about this one because I lived it. When I was in the business of managing devices day to day, this was probably the single biggest recurring task that was mostly manual. Even at its most automated in my day, it was essentially executing a series of PowerShell scripts. That was about as advanced as I got without a tool like NinjaOne. But with NinjaOne, I've actually gotten this down to be an almost zero-touch process. This will actually be one of those YouTube videos I mentioned that should come out later this month, where I'm using a free third-party utility, in this case, a PowerShell module known as OSD Cloud. And I'm using that to automate the process of creating a USB, which when you plug it in and boot from it, automatically downloads the specified image from Microsoft. I'm also including a provisioning package to install the NinjaOne agent and an unattend.xml file to bypass the out-of-box experience. There is actually already an article on the NinjaOne blog on this process. If you Google NinjaOne USB provisioning, I think you'll probably find it. But I'll have a complete video that goes through the entire process where we take a machine from bare metal and we have it completely provisioned for use without the need to do anything other than plug in a USB and hit F12 to boot from it. However, while I won't be covering the entire bare metal process today, I'll definitely be covering the component of NinjaOne after it gets installed, which would then deliver a variety of security configurations, applications, etc., to the device, while also maintaining the ongoing compliance that we mentioned. And finally, the last thing we'll talk about here is learning to anticipate the potential problems for common issues. As much as I wish that there was a clear, linear, straight line between whatever the problem was and the solution, oftentimes there is not. There are many potential problems, and you need to evaluate a range of data to determine what exactly could be causing the issue. And we'll talk about how we can use NinjaOne to gather information either in advance or at the time potential issues arise, which is just going to enable your technicians to solve problems more quickly and efficiently. And being proactive in this manner, I think, is going to empower your team to address issues before they escalate. Oh, I see a quick question in the chat here. Somebody asked about that PowerShell tool to image. That was OSD Cloud. So Oscar Sierra Delta Cloud. With that, let's actually go ahead and jump into the demonstration portion. So let me go ahead and stop my screen share right here. And then I will reshare my NinjaOne dashboard. And hopefully everyone can see this here. Oh, I got a quick question from Jeremy here about how long does that take to go from bare metal to able to use? So in the provisioning process, it takes about 30 minutes for the actual image to get flashed to where you get to, let's say, the login screen, depending on how you handle the unattend.xml file. And then from there, it kind of depends on what you're doing within Ninja to provision the device. In my experience, it took about another 20 minutes for my scripts to run. So yeah, I would say probably about an hour. That's dependent on hardware and internet speed, and of course how much you're doing, but that's roughly how long that took, Jeremy. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our first example here. I have gone and created some tickets for these issues right here, and we're actually going to start at the very bottom. We'll go ahead and do our load disk space here. We can see that what is being reported is that this particular device is low on disk space and may not be able to operate normally with regard to patching and backups. So what are some potential things that we could do here to try and remediate this particular issue? And so let's go to the device itself. And then let's go into the actual policy here. Actually, let's go to a different device, or I should say a different policy. Let's go into our Windows workstation policy right here. And so we'll go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. These are all my conditions. This is what's creating alerts and creating tickets inside of NinjaOne. You can see I'm monitoring quite a bit. Some of these are going to be related to patching. Are there patches that have a greater than 9.0 CVSS score that need to be installed? Has a device not installed an OS patch within the past 30 days? Is the Windows Update service actually running? Has somebody done something shady and disabled it? There is a reason that condition is in there. It's because one time I was a part of a company that did an acquisition, and I walked into a building to do an evaluation, and there was literally not a single genuine copy of Windows in the building, and they had disabled the Windows Update service. That is not something I would recommend, so there's a very real reason why I have that condition there. Now, what we're going to be looking at here is when the device is low on disk space. And so right here, we have this set to what's properly a not very good threshold here when it's less than 45%. We probably want to make this maybe a little bit lower. That would certainly cause some false positives. And so this will let us know when we have this particular issue. Now, we want to automate this. It's very difficult to go and chase down low disk space errors all the time. Trust me, I know. So on the right-hand side, we can then respond to this condition, this notice that we have low disk space. We can respond with some automated scripts. Now, a very basic table stakes measure here might be to empty the recycle bin. There's a native NinjaOne script for that. We can run more than one script, so we can also go ahead and delete temporary files as well there. So now we have a two-step process. Now, as I said, there is a half-life on the effectiveness of these two particular options. You can only empty the recycle bin so many times before it's just not really being effective. And so one measure that I really like is if we come in here, we're going to leverage a script from the template library. The template library is a collection of scripts. I think we're over 200 scripts now that are designed by NinjaOne engineers and updated on a regular basis to ensure they still work. To solve common problems in the IT space. And this is one that I think is incredibly valuable. We covered it on the first Scriptapalooza webinar all the way back in early March, if you haven't seen that one. And this is running a pop-up box on the end user's device that allows you to communicate with them. And so it's one way. You can also give them some options if maybe you're prompting them to reboot, to defer the reboot. But in this case, we really just want to notify the end user that they are low on disk space. You can see here that I don't actually need to do any coding to utilize the script. With the dynamic script variables that we see here, these allow me to provide one-to-one input to parameters inside of the script. So even though this is a very complex PowerShell script under the hood, my interfacing with it is very easy. It's just a series of data fields. Do I want to have them reminded to restart? Not in this particular case. Do I want to add a logo? Do I want to add an icon here? What do I want the message to say? And obviously in this context, I would say, hey, you need to delete some files on your computer because it's not going to work effectively unless you do so. One very important note here is you can see this is set to run as, but if you look at the description right above, this script needs to be run as the current logged in user in order to have this be visible to the end user. If you run it as system, it'll be visible to the system account, which is not going to be a person. And so to have this actually be visible, you certainly want to change this run as to the current logged on user. And clearly I haven't gotten around to it quite yet, but you can actually set a default run as parameter when inside of the actual script. So you can actually say that by default, this should run as the current logged on user. This is a new feature that came out, I think, with 5.9. And so I might go ahead and have this script run. And so it notifies the end user, hey, there's an issue here. The nice thing is we have this auto reset functionality here. So we know when this particular issue has been cleared up, if the end user has actually done what they've been prompted to do, because when that condition of low disk space has not been met for whatever period of time you specify, 4 hours in this case, we're going to go ahead and reset that alert. And so you won't necessarily need to reset this manually, assuming the end user or the script that you run to remediate the issue is effective. That alert's going to automatically go away off your dashboard so that you can focus on the issues that are still in effect. Let's go ahead and close out here, and we'll actually move into our next example. Discard that. We'll go back over to that ticket board on the left-hand side that we were looking at. Look at my tickets. By the way, the help desk shouldn't do what I'm doing and just leave it in a news state. You should probably close it out. Let's go on to our next example here. We have somebody reporting that the user they're not able to connect to the file server. And so this is the example that Stephen Murphy, I think, did on a webinar a couple of years ago, but it was so good that I figured we had to talk about it again. And this is so they're not able to connect to the file server. This is an example of where the end user is reporting the symptom of what they are experiencing. They're not reporting the actual root cause of whatever the issue is. And so this is where we can add in an automation to try and resolve an issue that we know is very common. And so how are we going to do that? For starters, we need to define a blacklisted Wi-Fi network or series of Wi-Fi networks that the end user should not have the ability to access. Now, this specific example is assuming, I shouldn't say assuming, but in this particular example, the workflow is that you have two wireless networks in a building, one that is designed for production use for people to actually get work done, and then one intended for guests so that you have that segmentation, that silo between potentially sensitive data and just guest Wi-Fi that anybody can connect to with their phone. And so what happens in some cases, this may or may not actually happen in the Ninja office sometimes, is that somebody gets connected to the guest Wi-Fi when in fact they should be connected to the production network. And so what we're going to do is define what that guest Wi-Fi that the end user should not be connected to is. And we're going to do that using a custom field. And so we'll come in here. We have a global custom field, actually a series of global custom fields here. And if we go down, you can see I've already created this guest Wi-Fi network field. Now, this is editable by the technician. It is able to be read from and written to by automations, although really I'm only going to be reading from this primarily. And then I also have the ability to set this through the API, although I doubt that I'm actually going to do that. But if you wanted it to go ahead and set the guest Wi-Fi networks for, let's say, multiple clients, then you may want to utilize the API so that you don't have to do a lot of manual data entry. Now, very importantly, this exists at three different levels in definition scope. We have device, we have location, and we have organization. The way that this custom field works is it has inheritance built into it. So you can set a value at the organization level. And even though that value is not going to be visible at the location level or the device level, the device is still going to see that particular value. And so if you tried to read from that organization custom field from the device, you would be able to know what that value is inside of your script. Now I can override that. The closer I get to the device, that is going to take precedence over values that are set above it. So organization would be the top level. That's the most distant from the device. Location would be right below that. And so if I override different data into a location-based custom field, that would supersede what is present in the organization custom field. And then finally, what is at the device is going to take precedence over anything set in the organization and location field. Now, in this case, I'm really only setting a value at the organization level, but you may have locations that have different guest Wi-Fi networks. So that's why we have all three levels available here. So we'll go ahead and create this field. We can go ahead and save that, or I've already saved it. And so we can go ahead and utilize this to set a value. And in fact, I already have. So if we go to, actually, we'll go back to our global operations organization here, right there. So now I'm at the organization view. I'll go into the custom fields and you'll see all of my organization custom fields that have been set. You can see here just some alert stuff. And then right there, I've input what the SSID or the name of my Wi-Fi network is in this case. In this case, it's Global Operations Guest Wi-Fi. That's the name of it. This gives me something to base the comparison off of. Now I can go ahead and use PowerShell to retrieve the Wi-Fi network the device is currently connected to. And then I compare that against what is a blacklisted network. And if the twain meet, then I know I've got a problem, I have an issue, and I need to address it in some way. And so how are we making this happen? Let's go to administration and then library. We are actually using two scripts that are not in the template library. I will post this and a couple of other scripts that I'll show today. I'll post those in the NinjaOne Discord script share, probably sometime later today or tomorrow. And the scripts we're going to be using, for starters, are one, to detect the wireless networks, this get wireless networks script that we see right here. And so this just uses, we'll go ahead and retrieve the currently connected Wi-Fi profiles right here. And then we go ahead and essentially compare that against what we retrieve from that organization custom field that we set earlier. And then if we find that they are connected to this blacklisted network, right here, we get some text saying guest Wi-Fi network is detected, and we get an exit code of 1, indicating that there's some sort of issue. So that's our first script. Now let's look at our remediation script. Right here, we have deleting the guest Wi-Fi. And so this particular script is retrieving the guest Wi-Fi network, and then it's deleting the profile from the device locally that matches the name of this guest Wi-Fi network. And then in this case, this is an additional bit that I'm not leveraging in this particular example, but I'm resetting a custom field that might indicate that the device was joined to a guest network. Again, not being leveraged in this case. So really what all I'm doing here is determining what the guest network is and then deleting that profile from the device. So now we have our scripts. How do we actually put this into action in NinjaOne? Let's go ahead and close out here and then go to the policy section again, and then into Windows Workstation. And so here we have our conditions again. This time, we're going to be leveraging a script result condition. You can see here, I have my audit to detect any guest Wi-Fi networks that are connected. And I'm leveraging that get wireless networks script, the first script that I showed you. And we can see here, this is running every 5 minutes. You can run this as frequently as you feel is appropriate in your own environment. This could be 5 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be every hour. It's really entirely up to you and what you see the volume of tickets on this being. And so we're monitoring, in this case, for two distinct things. We're monitoring for both an exit code of 1, so we need an exit code of 1, and we also need the text to be returned via the script that a guest Wi-Fi network has been detected. So this is and logic here, not or logic. Both of these have to trigger in order for the script result condition to actually work. If you wanted to do this strictly based off exit code, you would just say does not contains and leave the text box blank, and we would operate strictly based off of exit code. If you wanted to operate strictly based off of text string, you would change this to, I think, any, just 0, and then only alert based off of what is contained, and then specify your text string here. Obviously, in this case, I don't want to make that change, so I'll go ahead and pull this back up. In this case, I'm using both. I kind of want that certainty. I want both the exit code and the guest Wi-Fi network before this is actually going to trigger. And so this is going to trigger, and we'll have that alert that we'll know that guest Wi-Fi network has been connected to. We could also potentially create a ticket with this down here. I would probably create with a closed loop ticket inside of NinjaOne ticketing. And my rationale for that would be, I want to close the loop once this automation is successful. Once we take care of it, I don't want the ticket to remain open. I want the ticket to then move into a resolved status because the issue has been resolved. And so what's happening in this workflow, step 1, we use that first script to identify that a blacklisted or banned Wi-Fi network has been connected to. Step 2, we have this script over here to delete the guest Wi-Fi. And so this will retrieve whatever the name of the SSID or Wi-Fi profile is from that organization custom field. And then it will go ahead and delete it locally on the device. Step 3, most critical step, I think. How do you know if it worked? And that is the when no longer met that we see here. And so this will say, once this script runs again, it'll say, well, this is no longer in effect. You are no longer receiving the exit code of 1 and the text of guest Wi-Fi network detected. And so it'll resolve that alert with the ticket that we see here. Depending on how you configure that ticketing rule, it will have a downstream effect of moving that ticket into a different status. In my case, I would probably want it to be resolved. And so this is a great way to automate what I think is a common issue that maybe is not as apparent as other alerts. It's very easy to say, okay, low disk space, what do I do here? I think when you're looking at a more opaque issue where you're not really sure what the root cause is, that's where it takes a little bit of analysis to, again, address whatever the disease is rather than just the symptom of the disease. Something I learned from watching a lot of House. Let's go ahead and back out here and go to our third example. Yes, I see somebody saying there should be a Discord channel for the recordings. There is, if you look for the event recordings in Discord, everything that we do, both mine and everybody else's webinars, they should also be in that Discord channel. And we also post most of our stuff to YouTube as well. Let's go ahead and go back into my tickets and let's look at our third example here, which is going to be device onboarding. And so this is not necessarily an operational concern. And I guess what I mean by that is that it's not an ongoing operation. This is more about initial device provisioning rather than detecting issues in the field while the device is in actual use. So new laptop needs to be provisioned. I cannot emphasize enough how much I hated doing this manually. I think when I discovered Ninite, which allowed you to deploy multiple applications in one installer, that to me was like the heavens opening up. It was amazing to see that. But really now being able to do so much more through Ninja is, I think, very impressive. So let's go back to administration here, and let's see how we can make this happen within NinjaOne. We would go to policies here, and we would go into our Windows Workstation policy, and then to our scheduled automation section over on the left-hand side. And right at the very top here, I have helpfully placed this new device provisioning. I will be very transparent with you all that this is a demo environment, and as such, I've tried to make this very realistic, but there's also some scripts that I can't leave in here because it would otherwise disrupt things that we're doing in the environment. So I think when I actually tested this, I had about 26 or 27 scripts that ran. In this case, I think we only have 13 in this example. So just know that this can certainly scale to be more than what you see here today. Now we have a bunch of scheduling options here for these scheduled automations. And in this case, I am leveraging the run once immediately option. This is an incredibly powerful scheduling option. It will run across all your currently online devices. It'll run across all of your offline devices once they've returned to online status. And then I think most importantly, as new devices are joining NinjaOne, they are going to have this automation run on them. The nice thing about this is these are all sequential. So all these automations that we see over on the right-hand side, they're running, well, one will run and then complete, and then the next one will run. So they're not all going to be stepping on top of each other. Let's run through what some of these automations are and what the rationale for them is. The vast majority of these are in the template library. So you would have access to them as well. And I think this script right here, the enable BitLocker script, that's not in the template library, but I did pull this directly from the dojo. This would be Kelvin Teglar's enable BitLocker script. He is from CyberDrain. If you are familiar with his website, so I'm a big fan of his PowerShell scripting. So at the start, we actually changed the power and sleep settings. My rationale for this is I don't want the device to go to sleep with its default settings when I'm starting the provisioning process, something that absolutely happened when I was testing all of this. We then go ahead and start the enablement of BitLocker. We disable fast boot. We disable some weak utilities that should no longer be in use, like PowerShell 2.0, SMB v1. You can also do something like disable weak TLS, which would restrict anything that isn't version 1.2, I believe, or 1.2 and earlier. Now, keep in mind here, when you take these actions, you need to be ensured that it's going to work across the entirety of your fleet. And this is where being aware of the disparate device types that you have really comes in handy. We have done, or I've certainly done things in the past, like disabling weak TLS that had an unintended impact of affecting older line of business software that hadn't been patched properly. To use a more modern version of TLS. And so that disrupted business operation, which is the last thing that anyone would want to have happen. So be aware that you do want to test what you are putting out into the field with similar hardware to ensure that you're not going to cause more problems than you're ultimately solving with this automation. We then optimize the event log to ensure that we have all the data in our event log. If there is a potential issue, we disable the ability to create Microsoft accounts. We enable the Windows firewall. We turn on system restore. We install some applications like Google Chrome and Slack. These both come from the NinjaOne install application repository, where you can host your EXEs and MSIs or DMGs and PKGs on Mac devices so that they can be easily pushed out to devices. We finally set some UAC settings, and then I'm going to go ahead and force a reboot. One thing that I do like to do that I am not doing in this example is actually having a display pop up, what we saw earlier, show up on the screen to say the process is finished, we are done. So that is another nice addition that you could potentially add there. Now, before we move on to our final example, I did want to touch on another use of scheduled automations, which is the ability to create a one-click automation containing many scripts that will all run sequentially one after the other. You can see an example of this here. I'm updating a variety of custom fields right here, just making sure that all my custom fields have the data that makes them actually useful, being updated on a regular basis. I think in this particular case, I'm running this every 3 hours. And the nice thing is I can go ahead and call any of the scripts, any of the scheduled automations that we see here. I can call these all on demand in addition to having them run sequentially. So if I did want to manually provision a device, I could instead switch the schedule over to none, which is surprisingly useful. It's not running on an automated basis like every day or every week or every time the device starts up. It's only running whenever I call it. So I could put anything in here that I'm using on a consistent basis. And the benefit is I don't want my technicians to have to go, oh, okay, this is this particular issue. Let me run script 1. Let me then run script 2. Let me then run script 3. No, I want to build something out so they can all be in one all-inclusive automation. And I just click run and it runs. And then all these automations would run sequentially, one right after the other. Failures do not impact the progression of the script block. So let's say my script blocking Microsoft account creation failed. That is not going to prevent me from continuing on to enabling the Windows firewall, toggling system restore, installing applications, and etc. I also want to point out the conditions. We talk about the nature of ongoing compliance. So not just relying on a script that you run once to ensure that a device is secured against a potentially malicious attacker, but having ongoing checks for things like, is my device, does it have AV installed? And so this is a native condition inside of NinjaOne, where if the AV is missing, disabled, outdated for some reason, we're able to automatically alert on that via Windows Security Center. I might also audit BitLocker status. I know I'm enabling BitLocker at the beginning of the life cycle of the device, but I also want to know if BitLocker status ever gets turned off. And again, that's a native condition within Ninja. If BitLocker's been disabled for 10 minutes, I'm going to have an alert here. And of course, if I wanted to, I might also run a script in response to this to enable BitLocker, or in the very least, unsuspend it using the resume BitLocker commandlet in PowerShell. However, in certain circumstances and given the sensitivity of BitLocker, I would probably be reluctant to automate that. This is probably one of those situations where I want to let a technician use their experience to evaluate what's actually going on here before then manually taking the action to unsuspend, resume, or otherwise enable BitLocker. Another couple examples here, firewall status. You saw in that device onboarding automation that we are deploying the Windows firewall settings, but again, I want that ongoing compliance over time to know when my firewall settings are not what they should be. This, again, is a native script included in the, I shouldn't say native script because that's different verbiage. It is a script from the template library. Again, it's over 200 scripts that allow you to do things like this, easily audit firewall status. To import the script into the template library and set this automation here, if it's taking you longer than 5 minutes, there's a problem. This is incredibly easy to import and to set up. Lastly, you can see here auditing system restore status. So this way, if system restore is not enabled, we are then going to alert on it. But again, we're automating the enablement of system restore on the right-hand side, and then we're closing the loop using this when no longer met auto reset checkbox. Let's move on to our next example. A question here from William that I will answer live is he's asking, where did all those colorful graphs come from in the custom fields? Let's actually go ahead and look at this real quick. Unrelated to our topic on maximizing efficiency, but cool nonetheless. Let's go into our custom fields here. And we'll actually talk about this in our final example as well. I'm getting ahead of myself here a bit. But if we come in here to our custom fields, you'll see that they are all populated with a variety of data. Some of this is fake data just because these are VMs. You can see here the product key. I don't believe that is accurate. But then I do have real life data in here as well, which is what local administrators are on the device. This is, again, a script from the template library, what local users are on the device. And then this, a combination of the two, which is in the NinjaOne Discord, which creates this nice little table to know what SIDs they're a member of, if they're disabled, if they're locked out. So just a nice little addition right there. And if we go down a little bit further, I think what you may be referring to is something like this. Oops, sorry, my computer is freaking out. This right here is essentially a process using PowerShell to store data locally on the device in JSON, and then over time convert that data stored locally on the device into this visualization that we see here, which is reporting on CPU, memory, and disk usage over the last 24 hours. Now, I just got this process going a couple of weeks ago, so I don't have a full 30-day and 90-day graph here, but I think this is a great way to expand the data collection, give you insight into trend lines of what usage is looking like. If you are curious in setting this up, I'm going to pop a link into the chat unless somebody already beat me to it, but this is from another product manager here at NinjaOne, Luke Whitelock, easy for me to say. Let me go ahead and pop that into the chat. Now, actually, I think that is the right address there. So if I am wrong, yeah, let's right there. Yeah, mspp.io is the site here. And then if you go to introducing automated documentation and then into the getting started right here. Yeah, honestly, Chris, that was a great idea. I do love to rickroll people. Here you can see that there are a variety of different cool custom fields examples. We have the performance graphs, which I just showed off here. And then in this environment, I also have the enhanced alert setup, which just gives you some nice, pretty visualizations. None of this is proprietary. None of this is special in terms of what Luke is doing here or what I have done in the past. It's all HTML. So if you are good at HTML and you are good at CSS, we've actually recently added in some new charting capabilities, which you saw on the performance graphs here, which should make this very easy. So yeah, this is Luke's blog is a great resource. Would highly recommend checking it out. With that, I ate up a little bit too much time there. So let's go ahead and move on to our final example, which does revolve around using custom fields to give information to your technicians so that they are able to be more effective. In this case, we have an incredibly useful ticket. Help, my device isn't working right. Random crashes, please help. This is actually more descriptive than some tickets I've gotten in the past. And so how can we remediate this? And our goal here is to talk about when we don't have an issue, how can we then anticipate what the potential cause is and have that information available to the technician's fingertips? And so let's actually go back to that device that I was just on, because I know that's a good example. And when we come back here, we can go ahead and go into our custom fields. And you may have noticed that there was some data in there that could be relevant in this particular situation. So if I scroll down a little bit here, you're going to see the check disk status right there. And then we can also see the SFC status. Both of these are running in a validate mode or a verify only mode. So it's not fixing anything. It's just running check disk and running SFC and then reporting the output back into these custom fields. I've actually created a little device search grid over on the left-hand side here, easy for me to say. This device search grid gives you a variety of customizable columns. Where you can see here that I'm using custom fields heavily to flesh this out and make it more valuable. And if we go over here, you can see I have all this information at my fingertips. I can see errors have been found but not fixed. And then here, SFC, Windows Resource Protection, found integrity violations. Details are included. And so this lets me know where I need to potentially go and fix some issues. I'm not going and finding out that there's a random crash report and then going, okay, well, maybe I'll run DISM, maybe I'll run checkdisk, maybe I'll run SFC. I'm running it on a weekly basis in validate mode. So that way, when there is an issue that's been reported by the customer, I can go there and see, well, hey, they have some checkdisk issues, they have some SFC issues. Well, maybe I need to go ahead and run those commands to validate or fix those first before I move on to other troubleshooting steps. To again borrow a medical analogy, I guess, or something that I heard on House, when you hear hooves, you think horses, you don't think zebras. And so fixing some of the easy issues, the low-hanging fruit, that's a common troubleshooting step just to ensure that you have a good baseline to operate off of. Let's look at this from a different perspective again. We'll go back to low disk space. What happens when it's not feasible to bother the end user, or the end user themselves says, well, I've deleted all the stuff I can. I don't know why I'm so full on disk space here. Can you, technician, help me out to figure out why my machine is low on disk space? Instead of deleting temporary files, emptying the recycle bin, instead of prompting the end user, we might want to automatically run a tree size report. And so that way, when we come down into the bottom here, we'll see some tree size reports, actually two different ones we should see. Right here, we can see our recent uptime events, which is also very handy. We have our folder tree size. And so this is, I think, a Ninja native script that is reporting on what directories are consuming the most space. And we can see here that, hey, program files taking up 5 GB here, 6 GB here. This all looks fairly standard to me, so nothing's really standing out. But if we go down below that, we are seeing the file tree size report. This is from NinjaOne community member Jan Schult. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He is a wonderful Ninja community member. He has added a lot of really good scripts in here. And so this actually shows you the largest files, when they were created, when they were modified, when they were last accessed. So I just think having this information at your fingertips already there when you go to start the troubleshooting process, this is far preferable to coming to the device and then going, well, maybe I'll run checkdisk, maybe I'll run SFC, maybe I'll run this tree size report. You can see here that does take some time to complete. That just further extends the amount of time that you're spending on this particular ticket. I think is preferable to my way of thinking to have as much information present already, so that when you start the troubleshooting process, you're not starting from flat-footed. You're not starting from zero. You're already anticipating what some of the issues could be, and you've already provided some of that information to be available to the people who are going to be doing the hard work of troubleshooting and resolving issues. All right, let's go ahead and take some questions. All right, Justin had a question. What's the most effective way to uninstall Ninja from endpoints? I would certainly recommend deleting from the console in that case, Justin. You can see here, I can select my Active Directory server and then delete. That should queue up an uninstall command to run on the device whenever it comes back online, if it's not already online. There's also in the Ninja Dojo a Ninja removal guide script. It's a PowerShell script that should be very effective at uninstalling Ninja from your device. And of course, if you are continuing to run into issues, please reach out to NinjaOne support. They would be very happy to help you. Is there any way to have Ninja report on CVE vulnerabilities or have it automatically deploy relevant patches? So let's go back into NinjaOne and let's actually show off a cool closed beta feature. Actually, no, this is an open beta. So if you want this, please reach out to your account manager and they can turn it on for you. This would be the vulnerability importer that we see right here. So this does require that you have your own third-party vulnerability tool. This could be Rapid7, this could be Qualys, this could be Tenable. I think there's a couple other ones that we support. We want this to be generic, something that really any vulnerability tool that can export data to CSV can utilize this functionality. So if you do have that third-party tool to scan for vulnerabilities, what this will do after you import is place an indication of this on the dashboard. We can see right here, we have one device that has all of these vulnerabilities. We can go to the vulnerabilities tab right here and actually see what they are. I will freely confess that I made up a lot of these, or ChatGPT made up a lot of these, so they may or may not be accurate. And so we can see all of these right here. You'll also see these on the device itself. Let's go back to Dr. Abed's workstation here, and you'll actually see an indicator saying how many critical, mid-level, or low-level vulnerabilities have been detected right here. So hopefully that answers your question. Uh, Garrett had a question about the custom field setup. So certainly would recommend checking out Luke's blog for some of the more complex ones. But I do have plans for a all things custom fields webinar that we'll do later in the fall. So stay tuned. We will definitely have a custom fields masterclass before the end of the year. Lauren has a question. When disk space runs out, is there a script to move data to a shared drive and then create a shortcut to the transferred data? No, but I think that's a great idea. I'll certainly bring that up with our out-of-the-box team to see if there's the potential for a transfer files to a mapped drive. That seems like that would be broadly useful to many people. So great idea, but no, nothing today. We would need to custom script that to your specified map drive, but it certainly could be automated through Ninja. Question from Mark. Where is the folder tree size script? If we go to administration, library, automation, and then template library here, we should see the tree size report right there. This is doing the folder sizes. And like I said, on the Discord, I know that Jan has his GitHub linked that has the cool file tree size report. So the folder one is right here, and then the file one is going to be on Discord if you search for tree size in the script share section of Discord. Stuart has a question. Great question. Where would be the best place to submit feature requests or automated script requests? Product board. Would highly recommend submitting everything through product board. Our product management team, which would include the team that works on the out-of-the-box scripts, they live in product board. So if we go here to our product roadmap, this will take us to product board. You'll be able to see what's coming out with the next release. Really excited for this one, Systray, the ability to add automations that the end user can execute in either a current user or a system context. So really excited for that one. But if you did want to submit an idea, submit up here. This includes template library requests. This includes features you want to see in the platform. So please feel free to use this. This is something that our PM team is looking at every day. So having it all submitted to this portal, this is the best way to make sure that they're hearing your voice, which we want to hear. We know that the only way to make Ninja better is by listening to the people who are using it every day. Question from Alex here. Is it possible to import multiple scripts from the template library at once? It is not, unfortunately. Importing is only going to be one by one. I I will tell you what I did to import all of these template library scripts into this particular environment, uh, which was that I downloaded a screen recorder that would mirror the mouse clicks and what you typed into the keyboard. And so I just logged into a VM, downloaded that, set that up to go ahead and import all my scripts, and then walked away and had dinner and a drink. So yes, that is unfortunately the only real answer I can give to you to make this a more streamlined process. I think it was called macro recorder or something of that nature, but you can go ahead and essentially just have it mimic your mouse movements. And that would be probably, unfortunately, the easiest way to get that done. And I know that's a real dirtbag answer, so I apologize. With that, let's go ahead and launch a quick poll. So we're going to go ahead and we're trying something new here, essentially just feedback on how today's session went. So we'll go ahead and pop that up right here. How satisfied were you with your overall webinar experience? And with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite JP out here for a little announcement. We have, like I said, four pretty good prizes. perhaps we should have a second poll of which one you prefer.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's a great idea. Maybe we'll fit that into a future poll. But thanks again, everyone, for joining us on this webinar. We do these every month. We do these giveaways every month. We have Jeff on almost every month, almost every webinar of every month, dispensing very great, high quality information. And yeah, like I said, part of that is we like to do a little giveaway just to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. And we have one today. And the winner of this giveaway will have their choice between a standing desk, an under desk treadmill, a cordless vacuum, and a Valve Steam Deck. So I tried to go with a little bit of a desk theme for the Help Desk webinar. So, a desk itself, something you keep under the desk. If you're eating a lot of lunches at your desk, maybe you need to clean up with the vacuum, and then a Steam Deck that you can secretly play while you're at work. So why don't we get some drum rolls in the chat while I find our prize winner for today. One moment. And the winner, which just by making it to this point of the giveaway, that's how you're entered in this giveaway. The winner is Matthew Wiegman. So big congrats to Matthew. I'll be sending out an email later today with details on how to redeem your prize. Just keep an eye out for an email from me, JP at NinjaOne. And yeah, I'll pass it back to Jeff. Thanks again, everyone. Oh, we have a couple more webinars coming up. We have one next week on some 2025 trends that are coming up in the future. Jeff will be on that as well. And then we also will have another one closer to the end of the month on the 20th. That's going to be focused around IT training. So really excited about those. But yep, back to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, JP. Yeah, some pretty good prizes there. I think I would also take the Steam Deck. We are almost at time here. I have a few other questions that I wanted to get to, so we're going for the lightning round. Question from Fabian: is there an SNMP set for Synology NAS systems, including Hyper Backup? I'm not sure if this would include Hyper Backup, but the SNMP library does include OIDs for Synology NASs among QNAP, Dell iDRAC, HP ILO, and APC UPSs. Of course, any OIDs that you would like to add into Ninja, you absolutely can. We support full custom OID additions. They just are manually done through this modal that we see here. So hopefully that will have what you need there, Fabian. Question from, I just lost it. Lewis, do you know of any paid services that can help accelerate our improvements of our Ninja skills? I know of one that you're already paying for, which is Ninja. I would highly recommend the NinjaOne Academy that you can see right here. This would help your technicians get a certification in NinjaOne. But furthermore, sales engineering access is free and unlimited here at NinjaOne. So if you are looking to improve your team's training, I would recommend getting in touch with your account manager to arrange a dedicated training with sales engineers. I can vouch for them because I was one. Now, for the first 3.5 years that I worked at Ninja, I was a sales engineer, and that's what I did was help people with their NinjaOne environments. Now I do webinars where I try to do the exact same thing, but I trained a lot of the sales engineers, so I can personally vouch for the fact that they know their stuff. I would say in terms of paid services, it's the service that you're paying for already, NinjaOne, the NinjaOne Academy, and the sales engineers, plus the dojo. Those are all wonderful resources at your fingertips. Are there any plans on this from Johnny? Are there any plans on getting the availability to run PowerShell on client as an admin rather than logged in user or system? Yes, I do believe that is on our roadmap to escalate a CLI session to a specific credentialed administrator. So yes, there are plans for that. I don't have anything on timeline, but I do believe that's in the very least in the queue for development. So even if it's not a this year functionality, I would expect sometime early next year. Don't quote me on that. Development's development. Things do occasionally slide. But yes, we are aware of that being our request, and I do think that we have that as something that we intend to bring out. With that, I think I am over time here. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. I really appreciate it. If you have any other conversations, I am on Discord. You can find, I think my email was a part of this as well. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. Take care and have a good one.